His mother looked me in the eye and said, "Know your place." That was the night they threw me out with $75,000 and a smile, thinking I'd disappear forever. What they didn't know, I had been collecting evidence for 5 years. Evidence that would send them all to prison and make me millions. They called me ungrateful. I called it justice. This is the true story of how I destroyed a billionaire family who thought I was nothing. And trust me, you need to hear every single word of what happens next, because the revenge? It's sweeter than anything you can imagine. Welcome to Reality Stories Hub. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. You know, they say love is blind. But I think love just makes us want to believe in the best version of people, even when all the signs are screaming at us to run. Let me tell you my story. It's not a pretty one at the start, but I promise you, by the end, you'll understand why I'm standing here today with my head held high. My name doesn't matter. What matters is that I was once somebody's wife, somebody's daughter-in-law, somebody they thought they could throw away like yesterday's newspaper. But here's the thing about underestimating someone. It always comes back to bite you. I met Daniel Rivers in Toronto, at university. We were both studying law, but we came from completely different worlds. He grew up in Rosedale, that fancy neighborhood where the houses have names instead of just numbers. His family owned one of the biggest real estate development companies in Canada, Rivers Development Group. You've probably seen their buildings downtown, those glass towers that touch the sky. Me? I grew up in Scarborough. My mom cleaned houses. My dad drove a taxi. I got to university on scholarships and government loans. I worked at a coffee shop every morning before class and did tutoring on weekends just to pay for my textbooks. We were partnered together for a project, and somehow, between arguing about property law and sharing cheap pizza at 2 a.m., we fell in love. Or at least I thought we did. Daniel proposed to me on graduation day, right there in front of everyone, with his grandmother's diamond ring. I said yes because I loved him, because he made me believe that our differences didn't matter. That love was enough. That his family would come around eventually. I was so wrong. Meeting his family was like walking into a museum where I was the only thing that didn't belong. His mother, Patricia Rivers, looked at me like I was dirt on her expensive shoes. She didn't yell or make a scene. No, women like her are too clever for that. She just asked questions. Where are you really from? What do your parents do? Oh, how interesting. She touched my hair without asking. Commented on how well I spoke English, even though I was born in Canada. Every word was designed to remind me that I was an outsider. But Daniel defended me back then. He told his mother that he loved me and that was all that mattered. We got married at City Hall because his family refused to come to a real wedding. His mother said she had a migraine. His father had business in Vancouver. His brother and sister were suddenly unavailable. I should have known right then what I was getting into. But I was 25 and in love. I thought if I just tried hard enough, if I was perfect enough, they would accept me. I thought love could fix everything. It can't. The first couple of years weren't terrible. Daniel was working his way up in his family's company, learning the business from the ground up. I started working at a small law firm, taking cases for people who couldn't afford big fancy lawyers. We lived in a beautiful condo in Yorkville that his parents bought us as a wedding gift. Though Patricia made sure to remind me every month that it was technically still in the family trust, that it wasn't really mine. I tried so hard to fit in. I hosted dinner parties for Daniel's colleagues. I wore the clothes his mother bought me, neutral colors and conservative cuts, nothing like the bright colors I actually loved. I smiled through their jokes. I ignored their looks when I talked about my work, like I was performing instead of just being myself. Then things started to change. Daniel began working later and later. Business dinners turned into overnight trips. Weekend golf games became all-day affairs. And his mother started calling more. She would drop by our place unannounced to check on things. Really, she was inspecting me, judging how I kept house, offering suggestions on everything from how I cooked to how I dressed. When I didn't wear the clothes she bought me, she would tell Daniel I was ungrateful. When I cooked food from my culture, she would wrinkle her nose and suggest we order something more appropriate. I was slowly being erased piece by piece, and I didn't even realize it was happening. That's when Victoria Hart came back into the picture. She had been Daniel's friend since childhood. Same private schools. Same country clubs. Same world. She worked in the marketing department at Rivers Development and had just gotten divorced. Patricia loved her. Absolutely adored her. Started inviting her to family dinners, holiday gatherings, always making sure she sat next to Daniel. I'm not stupid. I could see what was happening. But every time I said something, Daniel made me feel crazy. She's just a friend. You're being paranoid. My mother is just trying to help her through a tough time. He was so good at it, making me doubt what I saw with my own eyes, making me question my own instincts. And meanwhile, his family welcomed Victoria like she was already part of the family. Patricia talked about her constantly. Victoria understands the real estate business. Victoria knows how to host properly. Victoria comes from the right kind of family. That last part she said to my face, like I was some kind of animal being judged at a fair. I tried everything to save my marriage. I suggested counseling. Daniel laughed. I planned romantic trips. He canceled them for work. I cooked his favorite meals. He barely noticed. I was drowning, trying to be perfect, trying to be worthy of a family that had decided from day one that I would never be good enough. And the whole time, I watched my husband fall back in love with his childhood friend. Watched his mother arrange it like a chess game. Watched his entire family choose her over me. The night I found them together almost felt inevitable. Like the universe was just confirming what I already knew deep down but was too afraid to admit. I had been at a conference in Montreal and came home a day early. I was exhausted, missing Daniel, hoping maybe we could reconnect. I even stopped to pick up sushi from his favorite place. I walked into our condo and found them on our couch. Our couch, the one I had picked out. In the home I had tried so hard to make warm and welcoming. They weren't even trying to hide it anymore. Daniel didn't apologize. He just looked annoyed that I had interrupted them. Victoria grabbed her purse and left without saying a word, like I was the one who didn't belong there. In my own home, I stood there, holding that bag of sushi, feeling like the floor was falling out from under me. But Daniel didn't comfort me, didn't explain. He just pulled out his phone and made a call. To his family. Within an hour, they were all there. His mother, his father, his brother, his sister. All sitting in my living room like this was some kind of intervention. Like I was the problem that needed to be solved. Patricia did most of the talking. I'll never forget her words as long as I live. She said I should have known this marriage was temporary. That women like me should be grateful for the opportunity to be part of their world, even if it was just for a little while. She said Victoria was a better fit, that she understood their lifestyle, their expectations. Then she used words like breeding and culture and knowing your place. She talked about me like I was a mistake that needed to be corrected. A phase Daniel had gone through that was now over. I stood there in my own home, listening to my husband's family explain why I wasn't good enough, why I should leave quietly, why I should be thankful for the experience and move on with dignity. Daniel stood behind his mother, silent, letting her speak for him. And that's when I understood that the man I married had never really existed. He had been playing a role, rebelling against his family by marrying me. And now the rebellion was over. He was going back to where he belonged, and I was being discarded. They had divorce papers already prepared, already signed by Daniel. All I had to do was sign and walk away with a settlement. $75,000. Patricia called it generous. Said it was more than fair for 5 years of marriage and no children. She slid those papers across my dining table like she was doing me a favor. And here's what they expected. They expected me to cry, to beg, to make a scene. They wanted me to prove everything they had always thought about me, that I was emotional, that I was inappropriate, that I didn't belong in their world. So I did the one thing they didn't expect. I signed the papers right there, without arguing, without crying, without giving them any satisfaction at all. I went to our bedroom, packed a suitcase, and left that same night. Checked into a hotel and didn't look back. I'm sure they celebrated. Probably popped champagne. Probably toasted to getting rid of the problem. To life going back to normal with Victoria seamlessly sliding into my place. Patricia probably already had their wedding planned in her head. But here's what they didn't know about me. Here's what they never bothered to learn in those 5 years. While I was playing the role of the perfect wife, attending their boring charity events, smiling through their casual racism, I was also building something else. Something they knew nothing about. You see, my law firm didn't pay much. But I had been taking every extra dollar I made and investing it. Small properties at first. A condo here. A duplex there. Rental units in neighborhoods that were just starting to improve. I studied the market. I made smart choices. I built a real estate portfolio that had nothing to do with Daniel or his family's money. Everything was in my name only. My accounts. My investments. My growing wealth that they knew nothing about because they never asked. They assumed I was financially dependent on Daniel. Assumed I needed their money to survive. Assumed I was helpless without them. They were wrong. But money wasn't the only thing I had been collecting. For 5 years, I had been watching, paying attention, learning. Daniel used to bring work home, leave his laptop open, take calls on speakerphone. His mother would gossip about business deals over dinner. His father would brag about clever ways they had structured contracts. And I remembered everything. I knew about the building permits they had obtained through bribes. I knew about the safety inspections they had falsified. I knew about the tenants they had illegally evicted. I knew about the environmental regulations they had ignored. I knew about the tax schemes his father was running. I knew about the money his mother was skimming from her foundation. I hadn't been planning anything specific. I just knew somewhere deep down that information was power. And I was going to need all the power I could get. The day after I signed those divorce papers, I called a lawyer. Not the one who handled the divorce. That was Daniel's family friend. I called someone I had worked with on tenant rights cases. Someone who specialized in real estate fraud and didn't know the Rivers family anything. Her name was Jennifer Park, and when I walked into her office with 3 boxes of documents and recordings, her eyes lit up like it was Christmas morning. We spent 3 weeks going through everything. Every permit, every inspection, every contract, every lie. And the more we looked, the worse it got. Jennifer couldn't believe what we were finding. She kept shaking her head and saying, they really thought they were untouchable, didn't they? And they did. That was the thing. The Rivers family had been operating in Toronto for 3 generations. They had connections everywhere. City council, planning departments, building inspectors, police, media. They had built an empire on handshakes and backroom deals and the absolute certainty that their name made them immune to consequences. But empires built on corruption always have cracks. You just need to know where to look. We found building projects where they had cut costs by using substandard materials. Residential towers where the concrete wasn't properly reinforced. Where fire safety systems didn't actually work. Where cheap wiring was creating fire hazards. People were living in these buildings right now, completely unaware that they were in danger. We found apartment complexes where they had illegally evicted tenants to renovate and jack up the rent. Families thrown out with nowhere to go. Elderly people forced from homes they had lived in for decades. Also, the Rivers family could maximize their profits. We found environmental violations. Construction sites where they had dumped toxic materials into watersheds. Where they had destroyed protected wetlands. Where they had ignored every regulation meant to protect the community. And Daniel, my husband, the man who had promised to love and honor me, he was right in the middle of it all. He wasn't some innocent kid learning the business. He was actively involved. Signing off on falsified inspection reports. Authorizing illegal evictions. Covering up safety violations to keep projects on schedule. But I didn't rush. I didn't file anything right away. I waited. I let them get comfortable. I let Daniel and Victoria move in together. I let Patricia plan their engagement party. I let the whole family celebrate their victory over me. And while they were celebrating, I was building my case. I was meeting with more lawyers, more investigators, more people who had been hurt by the Rivers family's greed. I found Professor Thomas Wright, my old property law professor, who now worked with the city planning department. He had been raising concerns about Rivers development for years, but he kept getting shut down. When I showed him what I had, he didn't hesitate. He was ready to help me burn it all down. I found other developers who had been pushed out of deals by the Rivers family's underhanded tactics. I found former employees who had been fired for asking questions. I found tenants who had been illegally evicted. I found families who had bought condos that were falling apart because of shoddy construction. I built a network of people who were all waiting for someone to finally hold the Rivers family accountable. But I also built something else. My own company. I started small. A real estate consulting firm that helped people navigate tenant rights and building safety issues. The things I had learned while being married to Daniel, I now used to help protect people from families like his. Professor Wright became my partner. We took on clients who had been burned by corrupt developers. We helped tenants fight illegal evictions. We worked with city officials who actually cared about doing the right thing. And slowly, quietly, my company grew. We started getting attention, media coverage, awards for ethical business practices, contracts with people who wanted to develop property the right way. I was building my own empire, one based on honesty and integrity. Everything the Rivers family wasn't. 6 months after I signed those divorce papers, I filed a lawsuit that made every newspaper in the country. It wasn't just a divorce dispute. It wasn't just me asking for more money. It was a comprehensive legal action that included fraud charges, bribery, criminal negligence, illegal evictions, environmental violations, and about 20 other counts that could send people to prison. I named Daniel, his father, his mother, and 5 executives at Rivers Development Group. I submitted every document, every email, every recording to federal regulators, provincial authorities, and law enforcement. The media went absolutely insane. The story had everything: wealth, betrayal, corporate corruption, a mistress, and me, the woman of color they had thrown away like garbage, coming back with evidence that could destroy them all. Rivers Development Group's stock crashed. Banks started calling in loans. The board called emergency meetings. City inspectors shut down 3 of their construction sites immediately for safety violations. Federal environmental investigators raided their offices. Daniel's family tried to fight back. They hired the best lawyers in the country. They called in favors. They tried to intimidate witnesses. They tried to pay people off. But I had been thorough. Every piece of evidence was documented. Every witness was protected. Every claim was backed up by hard proof. Their lawyers couldn't make this go away. This wasn't something they could settle quietly or bury with their connections. This was public. This was criminal. This was real. I watched it all unfold from my new office. The office of my growing company. The company that was now being featured in business magazines as the ethical alternative to old money corruption. We were hiring former Rivers Development employees who wanted to work for a company they could be proud of. We were taking contracts they used to have. We were becoming everything they used to be, except we were doing it honestly. And every day, my company grew stronger while theirs crumbled. Patricia tried to do damage control. She gave interviews claiming she didn't know about the fraud, that she was just a wife and mother who had been kept in the dark. But I had made sure the evidence was crystal clear. Her signature was on documents approving illegal evictions. Her emails discussed cutting costs by ignoring safety regulations. She knew. She had always known. Daniel tried to reach out to me. He called my office, sent emails, even showed up at my building once. Security escorted him out, but not before he could say he was sorry, that he had made a mistake, that his family had pressured him. I looked at him, really looked at him, and I saw a weak, small man who had never made a real decision in his life. The legal process took 2 years. 2 long years of depositions and hearings and court dates. 2 years of watching the Rivers family empire crumble piece by piece. And honestly, every single moment was satisfying. Daniel's family fell apart faster than I ever imagined. His brother and sister turned on each other, each trying to prove they had nothing to do with the fraud. They threw Daniel under the bus. They threw their father under the bus. They would have thrown their own mother under the bus if it meant saving themselves. That's what happens when a family is built on money and status instead of actual love. The moment things get hard, everyone scatters like rats on a sinking ship. Daniel's father, Richard Rivers, he broke first. Turns out he had been hiding money in offshore accounts for years. Tax evasion on top of everything else. When that came out, his wife Patricia lost her mind. She filed for divorce, trying to protect her own assets. After 40 years of marriage, she threw him away the same way she had thrown me away. Karma is funny like that. Victoria disappeared the second criminal charges were filed. Didn't even say goodbye to Daniel. Just moved to Australia and deleted all her social media. So much for true love. So much for being the perfect match. She wanted the money and the status, but she didn't want the consequences. Daniel tried to make a deal with prosecutors. He offered to testify against his father in exchange for reduced charges. But the evidence against him was too strong. Too many documents with his signature. Too many decisions he had personally made. He couldn't talk his way out of this one. Patricia, oh Patricia. She tried everything. She claimed she was just a housewife who didn't understand business. She cried in interviews about being a victim of her husband's choices. She even tried to reach out to me through a mutual acquaintance, asking if we could talk. I declined. I had nothing to say to her. The trials were huge news. Every day there were camera crews outside the courthouse. Reporters asking for comments. Social media going crazy with opinions. Some people supported me, said I was brave for speaking up. said I was a hero for exposing corruption. Other people, mostly from their world, said I was vindictive. That I was just an angry ex-wife trying to get revenge. That I was destroying a family legacy out of spite. Let them talk. I knew the truth. I had the evidence. And unlike the Rivers family, I could sleep at night knowing I had done the right thing. The verdicts came in one by one. Richard Rivers was convicted of fraud, bribery, tax evasion, and criminal negligence. 15 years in federal prison. All his assets seized. The man who had spent his whole life building an empire lost everything. Patricia Rivers was convicted of fraud and conspiracy. 5 years in prison. All that charity work she pretended to care about, all those galas and fundraisers, all revealed as ways to launder money and boost her social status. Daniel, my ex-husband, took a plea deal in the end. 8 years in prison with possibility of parole after 5. The man who had stood by while his family humiliated me, who had cheated on me in our own home, who had thrown me away like I meant nothing, was going to prison. Rivers Development Group was restructured and sold. Professor Wright was brought in to oversee the cleanup. Buildings were properly inspected. Tenants who had been illegally evicted were compensated. Safety violations were fixed. The company I had helped destroy was being rebuilt the right way. And me? The settlement I received was 50 times what they had originally offered me. Not $75,000. $3.7 million. Not because I needed the money. My company was thriving. We had offices in Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal now. We were doing projects across Canada. I was making more money than I ever imagined possible. But I wanted them to feel it. I wanted them to understand the cost of underestimating me. I wanted that number to hurt. I used some of that settlement money to start a foundation. A support network for women going through difficult divorces, especially women of color who didn't have resources to fight back against powerful families. I hired lawyers to take cases for free. I created counseling services. I built a network of support because I knew what it felt like to be isolated and told you weren't good enough. Every woman who came through our doors, I saw myself in her. That scared, hurt version of me who had signed those papers and walked away. But I also saw the strong, powerful version she could become. Because that's the thing they didn't understand. They didn't break me. They freed me. When I was married to Daniel, I was trying to be someone I wasn't. Trying to fit into their world. Trying to earn approval from people who would never give it to me. I was making myself smaller just to make them comfortable. But when they threw me away, they gave me permission to be myself again. To build something on my own terms. To use everything I had learned in their world to create something better. My company became one of the most respected real estate development firms in Canada. We built affordable housing. We renovated buildings properly. We treated tenants with respect. We followed every regulation. We proved that you could be successful without being corrupt. I was invited to speak at conferences. I was interviewed in magazines. I was asked to serve on boards and committees. Not because of who I married. Not because of whose family I belonged to. But because of what I built with my own 2 hands. The girl from Scarborough who used to serve coffee before class was now sitting on panels with billionaires, telling them how to run ethical companies. And it felt good. Better than good. It felt right. 5 years have passed since that night I signed those divorce papers. 5 years since Patricia Rivers told me to know my place. 5 years since they all looked at me like I was nothing. My life today looks nothing like the life I had with Daniel. And thank God for that. I live in a penthouse in downtown Toronto with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Every morning I wake up to sunshine and that incredible view, and I smile. Not because of the luxury, though I won't lie, it's nice. But because I earned this. Every single square foot of it. My company now operates in 6 cities across Canada. We've expanded into the United States. We're in talks to start projects in the Caribbean. We employ over 200 people. People who believe in doing business the right way. People who understand that profit and ethics don't have to be enemies. Last month, I was named one of the top 50 most influential women in Canadian business. Me, the girl whose mother cleaned houses. The woman who was told she didn't belong. Professor Wright is still my partner, and he likes to joke that working with me is the best decision he ever made. We've built over 40 affordable housing projects. We've helped thousands of families find safe, decent places to live. We've proven that you can make money and make a difference at the same time. The foundation I started for women going through difficult divorces has helped over 300 women so far. We've provided free legal services, counseling, job training, financial planning. We've helped women escape bad situations and build new lives. Every time I meet one of them and hear their story, I'm reminded why I fought so hard. Because it was never just about me. It was about every woman who had been told she wasn't good enough. Every woman who had been thrown away. Every woman who had been underestimated. I saw Patricia once, about a year ago. She had been released early for good behavior. I was at a coffee shop, and she walked in. Our eyes met across the room, and for a moment time stopped. She looked old, tired, broken. Everything that wealth and status had given her was gone, and without it, she was just a sad woman who had lost everything. She started to walk toward me, and I could see she wanted to say something. Maybe apologize. Maybe explain. Maybe ask for help. I picked up my coffee and walked past her without a word. I had nothing to say to her. She had made her choices, and she was living with the consequences. Just like I was living with mine. I don't hate the Rivers family anymore. Hate requires energy, and they're not worth my energy. What they did to me hurt. It changed me, but it also freed me to become who I was always meant to be. Sometimes people ask me if I regret marrying Daniel, if I wish I could go back and change things. And honestly, no, I don't. Because that experience taught me things I could never have learned any other way. It taught me that love isn't enough if there's no respect. It taught me that family isn't always blood. It's the people who show up for you when things get hard. It taught me that the only approval I need is my own. It also taught me to keep receipts. Always keep receipts. I'm dating someone now. His name is James, and he's a high school teacher. He drives a 10-year-old car and lives in a modest apartment in the East End. He's never heard of the Rivers family. He doesn't care about my money or my status or any of that. He likes me because I make him laugh. Because I'm passionate about my work. Because I dance badly in my kitchen, and I'm not afraid to be myself. And I like him because he's kind. Because he's real. Because when I tell him about my day, he actually listens. That's what love is supposed to feel like. Easy. Natural. Safe. Not like something you have to earn. Not like something that can be taken away if you're not perfect enough. Last week, I drove past the building where Daniel and I used to live. The condo his parents bought us. The place where I tried so hard to be someone I wasn't. There was a for sale sign out front. I smiled and kept driving. I don't need to go backward. My life is forward now. Always forward. If you're watching this and you're going through something similar, if someone is making you feel small, if someone is telling you you're not good enough, please hear me. They're wrong. You are enough. You've always been enough. Don't let anyone dim your light just to make themselves feel brighter. And here's the thing I want you to remember. The thing that got me through the hardest days. Your value doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to see your worth. The Rivers family couldn't see my worth, so they lost me. That was their loss, not mine. I went on to build something beautiful. Something meaningful. Something that helps people and makes the world a little bit better. They went to prison. So when people tell you to know your place, smile and nod. Because you do know your place. Your place is wherever you decide it is. Your place is in rooms where decisions are made. Your place is at tables where your voice matters. Your place is at the top if that's where you want to be. Never let anyone tell you otherwise. I'm standing here today, 5 years later, not as someone's wife or someone's daughter-in-law. I'm standing here as myself. Fully, completely, unapologetically myself. And that more than the money or the success or the revenge, that is the real victory. They tried to break me. Instead, they freed me. And now I'm unbreakable. Remember this story the next time someone underestimates you. The next time someone tries to make you feel less than. The next time someone tells you that you don't belong. Keep your receipts. Build your empire. And never, ever let them see you break. Because you're not going to break. You're going to rise. Just like I did. The end.